Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party finds itself at one of the lowest points in public opinion since returning to power more than a decade ago. The approval ratings have slipped across multiple national polls, and the leadership is under growing pressure to respond. In the midst of this tense political climate, Secretary-General Shun'ichi Suzuki has stepped forward to address the situation, acknowledging the public's frustration while avoiding any direct reference to dissolving the House of Representatives. His remarks have sparked attention across the nation, as observers look for signs of whether the ruling party plans to reset its mandate or simply weather the storm. Suzuki's comments came after weeks of negative survey data showing a consistent decline in support for both the party and the government. The public mood has been shaped by economic uncertainty, rising living costs, and the perception that political leaders have lost touch with ordinary citizens. In many households across Japan, the sense of disillusionment is palpable, and it has been amplified by social media discussions and local community debates about whether the government still represents the voice of the people. Against this background, Suzuki's measured response stands out. Rather than offering dramatic promises or bold declarations, he emphasized the need for the party to listen carefully to the voices in the field and strengthen its ties with the grassroots. Inside the party headquarters, this phrase, "voices in the field," has become something of a slogan in recent days. It represents an acknowledgement that the traditional top-down style of decision-making may no longer be effective. Local branches have been sending signals to Tokyo that voters are losing patience with abstract policies that don't seem to improve daily life. Suzuki, known for his calm and pragmatic tone, tried to project an image of steadiness. He suggested that the LDP should rebuild trust step by step rather than rushing into political theater like dissolving the lower house. That restraint may seem cautious, but in Japan's delicate political system, such restraint can be a strategy in itself. Still, behind the scenes, there are growing whispers among lawmakers who fear that hesitation could cost them even more. Within the corridors of Nagatake, debates have begun over whether to call for a snap election, hoping to regain control of the narrative. Some argue that facing voters early might reset the political mood, while others insist it would be suicidal to face the electorate while approval numbers remain so poor. Suzuki, by refusing to mention dissolution outright, effectively drew a line. He positioned himself as a stabilizer rather than a gambler. His choice reflects an awareness that any misstep could not only harm the party but destabilize the coalition and even the broader economy. For the average citizen, however, this talk of hollow to many ears. Suzuki's remarks, though subtle, indirectly acknowledge this gap. When he spoke about flexibility in policymaking and the importance of regional perspectives, it was an admission that the central government has lost touch with real-world concerns. Some commentators have noted that Suzuki's statement marks a shift in tone for the ruling party. It hints at an awareness that political authority in Japan can no longer rely purely on loyalty or tradition. The LDP's decades-long dominance has often rested on a combination of bureaucratic control and rural support, but both pillars are showing cracks. The agricultural regions that once formed the backbone of LDP power are facing demographic collapse, and younger generations are increasingly drawn to independents or opposition parties promising transparency and reform. In this new landscape, Suzuki's call to listen to voices in the field may sound like common sense, yet it also exposes how far removed the leadership has become from the voters who once carried them to power. Inside the Diet, the loss of the ruling coalition's majority in both chambers has added another layer of tension. Without a clear majority, passing legislation has become slower and more complicated. The party must now rely on negotiation with opposition forces it once dismissed. For a political culture accustomed to one-party dominance, this is unfamiliar territory. Suzuki's emphasis on flexibility is therefore not only political rhetoric, it is a survival tactic. By signaling a willingness to compromise, he is trying to prevent paralysis within the government. Yet critics say that this flexibility might come too late, as public patience wears thin. The idea of dissolving the House of Representatives hangs like a ghost over every conversation. In Japan, the decision to dissolve the lower house is one of the most powerful tools in a prime minister's arsenal, often used to seize the initiative or escape a deadlock. But it is also risky, call it at the wrong time, and it can destroy a government. Suzuki's silence on the matter is strategic. By avoiding direct reference, he leaves room for maneuver. If conditions improve, the leadership can claim stability. If things worsen, they can later pivot to dissolution as a last resort. For now, he seems determined to buy time, to rebuild confidence before making any irreversible moves. Among political analysts, there is debate about whether Suzuki's approach will work. Some see it as a realistic reading of the moment, a recognition that Japan's voters crave steady hands rather than dramatic gestures. Others interpret it as indecision, a refusal to confront the inevitable. Yet what makes this situation particularly striking is how transparent the discontent has become. Newspapers, television debates, and online platforms are filled with skeptical voices questioning whether the LDP still deserves to govern. It is not just about policy missteps or scandals, it is about the perception of detachment. Suzuki's challenge is to counter that perception without appearing desperate. Beyond the immediate political game, there are deeper implications for Japanese democracy. The erosion of automatic trust in the ruling party suggests a more fluid political era may be coming. Regional politics are becoming more vocal, smaller parties more assertive, and voter turnout, though historically low, could become decisive if frustration continues to build. Suzuki's attempt to refocus the party's attention on ordinary people might be the first recognition of this shift. Whether he can turn that awareness into action remains uncertain, but the message is clear: the LDP can no longer rely solely on its legacy. For now, Suzuki's remarks have offered a glimpse into the party's internal psychology. They reveal a leadership that understands it is in trouble but is still searching for a coherent path forward. There is a sense of fatigue in Japanese politics, a quiet recognition that the old formulas no longer inspire confidence. In conversations across Tokyo and beyond, citizens are asking whether the ruling party that rebuilt post-war Japan can still renew itself in a changing world. Suzuki, by stepping carefully through his words, is attempting to hold that fragile balance between continuity and reform. The coming months will test his skill and the party's resilience. Every minor scandal, every economic report, and every local election result will feed the narrative of either decline or recovery. While Suzuki avoided dramatic language, his tone carried an undertone of urgency, an understanding that the LDP's fate depends on how quickly it can reconnect with ordinary people. As the public watches and waits, one thing is certain: the old assumption that the LDP's dominance is unshakable no longer holds. Japan's political future has entered a new, uncertain chapter, and Suzuki's cautious words may be remembered as the moment when the ruling party began to face its own vulnerability.